Thank you, Danny. It's really my pleasure, distinct pleasure, to be able to introduce our speaker today. I've known him for quite a long time. Very distinguished gentleman, and really happy that he is now mayor of the largest city in Kenton County, and doing a great job. So, Ron Washington was elected to a 4-year term as mayor in 2024. After serving 4 years on the Covington Board of Commissioners, he was the highest vote getter in 2020 and 2022, which led to his role as mayor pro tem in addition to being a commissioner. Mayor Washington recently received, or I guess will be receiving, the 2025 Ruth Eager Leader of Distinction Award presented by the Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. The accolade recognizes an individual who has dedicated their life to making meaningful contributions to the Northern Kentucky region, and that's very much true for Mayor Washington. 2023, he received the Covington Education Foundation Person of the Year. Mayor Washington currently serves on the board as a board member of the Gateway College Foundation in the Northern Kentucky Area Development District. He's also a member of the Holmes High Team Foundation and has served as a board member for Parish Kitchen. Additionally, he's actively involved in many boards and commissioners for the City of Covington and the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Washington came to Covington as a newborn to live with his foster mother, Anna Washington. He was adopted by Miss Washington about 5 years later and grew up in the family's 1860s two-story Italianate house on West 6th Street in Covington, in the Covington's Old Town Mudrigatus neighborhood. He's a product of the Covington Independent School District. Washington graduated from Holmes High School in 1986. He maintains a close relationship with the Covington School District and regularly volunteers his time to help students while also serving as the voice of the Lady Bulldogs basketball program. You'll see why he was involved in basketball when you get here, and why the microphone is so high here. Washington is a retired Northern Kentucky law enforcement officer, originally with Florence, graduated from the Kentucky Department of Criminal Justice Training Academy in Richmond and the FBI National Academy at Quantico. He served as chief deputy in the Kenton County Sheriff's Office for 5 years, and although retired, Ron's rank of colonel still makes him the highest ranking African American police officer to ever work in Northern Kentucky. He remains an active member of the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 20. After retiring from police work, Ron became a pioneer in the fight against heroin and other opiate addiction. He's founding one of the largest medication-assisted treatment centers in Kentucky, which has helped thousands of people achieve recovery. As mayor, Washington is focused on increasing the availability of affordable housing, delivering efficient and responsive government services, ensuring Covington remains a welcoming and inclusive community for all. These focus areas reflect his commitment to creating a city where every resident has the opportunity to thrive. And his mantra has been, "I will not be a stranger," and he certainly is no stranger. So, Mayor Washington.
John, appreciate it. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I thank you for the microphone. Usually I'm doing an adjustment to my height, but I was optimistic that I'd come here and the microphone was placed correctly. How's that? Here we go. All right. So thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it. I would like to start sharing a little bit about myself and about my journey, and then we can talk about the great things that are happening in Kentucky's fifth largest city of Covington. So as many of you know, because of the introduction, I was raised in the city of Covington. But however, prior to that, I actually was born in Harlan, Kentucky. So I am from eastern Kentucky. My grandfather was a coal miner. My journey from Harlan to Covington was courtesy of the state of Kentucky. So I was a foster child. So I was brought to West 6th Street at an early age, a few days old, and I was brought to a wonderful woman's house whose name's Anna Washington. So there's my last name. Mrs. Washington, who I know as mom, taught community. Community was always very important. Growing up in West 6th Street, down the street from Mother of God. Now, West 6th Street and Main Strasse did not look like it looks today when I was growing up. West 6th Street was challenged by some vacant homes, people in transition, things of that nature. And so was Main Strasse as I would walk to my elementary school at 3rd District at 5th and Philadelphia Street. What you see today is just remarkable. I see it from a kid's eyes that grew up and the Goose Girl fountain did not have water coming out of it at the time I was walking through Main Strasse. Now it's very vibrant and people are around and they're eating at our restaurants. I grew up when West 6th Street was kind of a rough place. But what always brought calm to the neighborhood was the Covington Police Department. They would come to the neighborhood, and for those few minutes that they were on scene, they brought calm. And I knew then that I wanted to be a police officer because I wanted to change people's life. I wanted to bring calm, and I wanted to bring civility. So there was my trek to become a police officer. But there was many people in the neighborhood that helped me along. There was people like Father Murdy's, who was in charge of our parish, who led the revitalization of our neighborhood. There was a person named Ann Mitchell who was there, who also was very involved with our family. A person named Don Lubers, who fixed automobiles in the area. So what does that do? That gives a child a hope that there's going to be calm in the neighborhood, and these people helped. So Mother Goddess neighborhood off of Russell Street started growing. We had new people coming, new way of thinking. That parish was a big deal, and it is a big deal to this day, especially in my life. So that's my neighborhood as I remember it. Of course, I went on to high school. Went on to high school at Holmes High School, which I played basketball. I am 6'7", if you're wondering. I played basketball, not that I was good, it's because I didn't have a choice. You walk down the hallway and they throw you a basketball at this height. So I played basketball under Coach Reynolds Flynn. I always like to say we were the team after Doug Slomer and Dickie Bill. So if you remember your Northern Kentucky basketball, you know that those teams were the awesome teams for Holmes High School during that time, and they beat up on a lot of teams in Northern Kentucky. Well, they took it out on our team, okay? So it was payback when we played basketball. But one thing that being a student at Holmes High School and playing sports, it taught me teamwork. It taught me that it was not about me, it was about the team. It was taught me that you don't show up so much for yourself, but you show up for your other players. So that was instrumental working under Coach Reynolds Flynn, who I just saw recently, and our now deceased coach, Ken Spurlock. So they were very inspirational and as I was making a journey into becoming a young man. So after high school, I went to NKU. I knew I needed to keep my nose straight, clean. I knew that everything that I did was going to be at one time looked upon because I wanted to be a police officer. One of my professors, Tom Kaufman, was the assistant police chief for Florence, Kentucky. He encouraged me to apply for Florence, Kentucky, and I was fortunate enough to become a police officer in the city of Florence. And as mentioned earlier, I was the first African-American police officer hired by the city of Florence. But it did have its challenges. Florence was not a diverse place. The police department obviously was not a diverse place. So I had to learn to do my best in that environment. You know, when you look at your life, and I've looked back at mine, I've noticed one thing, and that is that God, He builds you up for the next battle. As you're going through life and you're meeting challenges, He's just getting you ready for the next battle. I don't try to push my religious beliefs on anybody. This is from me, but this is what I've seen when I look back, is that He's built me up for the next thing. And Florence Police helped me a great deal be prepared to become the Chief Deputy of Kenton County Sheriff's Office under Sheriff Korsenborn. I was his first Chief Deputy. I ran his campaign. You see, my mom, Anna Washington, she loved politics, and I got that from her. I loved politics. When I was a little boy, my first campaign that I actually worked on was the former mayor of Covington, Tom Behan's campaign. So, and they sent us to this place in South Covington that didn't look like downtown at all, and that's where I learned how to door knock at a young age. So politics was always in my veins, and I went ahead and I would volunteer on campaigns. And it was pretty interesting. I wound up actually running several political campaigns, and when I would do, as a person that ran these campaigns in a volunteer status, you'd get your candidate out there, you prep them up, you give them the information, you push them out there, and then you go, ooh, that didn't work so well. but you bring them back and you brush them off and you get them ready for the next battle. And it was very, very enlightening being just a volunteer on a campaign that campaigns that wind up running campaigns. All the way to the governor's office, I was involved in various statewide races. It was very eye-opening to see our state, to see our Commonwealth from different views. You know, we have a lot of rural areas, we have suburban areas, we have inner cities, and we have just a beautiful state. And I will say this, I would put our state against any state as far as the nicest people in the world. Just nice, just are ready to be there and to be helpful. You can't beat that about Kentucky. So after being in the sheriff's office, I had an opportunity to retire. So I retired as my rank was colonel on the sheriff's office. That was extremely rewarding. Got to meet a lot of people in that process, including one of your Optimist members, who was our county commissioner, Dan Humpert, and then our county clerk, our circuit clerk, John Middleton, also during those periods of time. So I just feel very blessed now to return to office and to be reacquainted with all these great people. After my law enforcement career, I just was pretty much doing anything until I had a conversation with someone about the addiction issues in northern Kentucky, about how many people were actually affected by heroin and opioids, known as painkillers, and what could be done about that. So I became self-taught on addiction, and I found very quickly that there was a study out of the University of Kentucky that said people that were addicted had a chance if they went through this program known as medication-assisted treatment. In other words, it's all about the withdrawals. People may take drugs because it's a recreation at first, or they're trying to find something. But getting off of hard drugs is very, very difficult because you've changed the brain and you've changed the body. So how can we help people to help themselves? And medication-assisted treatment is one of the things that I was looking at doing. So as I was saying, I became self-taught on that, and then it became a mission of mine to help people. Now, that mission included opening up a clinic in the city of Covington. It was not the easiest thing in the world. A lot of people looked at it as, I don't want those people in my backyard. So it was my job to explain that those people grew up in your backyard. That's what they did. They were our brothers, they were our sisters, they were our children, they were our uncles, and they were our aunts. So there had to be an education process to do that. So that was a tough fight, but that was a fight that we won. So we opened a clinic, and the clinic became very successful in helping a lot of people. It expanded throughout the state of Kentucky, helping a lot of people. Everybody was not successful, obviously, but there was many. To the point that the other night I was talking to a group of people, and after the talk, a lady came to me and she said, I'm sorry I was crying during your speech. Now, to be honest, I did not notice her crying. And she came to me and she said, when you told the story about the methadone clinic, I did not realize it was you that had opened the clinic. And then she started talking about a story about her brother who was deeply addicted, how it affected the whole family, and how the clinic had turned him around, and now he's a productive citizen. So the fight was worth it. So after the clinic, the clinic and my partners, we sold the clinic. I followed my wife around. My wife, she's a very educated woman, unlike me. She is a PhD, and she is a nurse practitioner, and she is also a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force Reserves. So, so they tell you to marry up, and I believe I married up. So I would follow my wife Angela around the country as she would go on these training missions, and we would spend the evenings together. So during this period, Mayor Joe Meyer called me and asked me if I would put in for the Motor Vehicle Parking Authority. I said, "What is that?" And he talked about, well, they'll tackle important parking issues within the city and things like that. And I said, "Oh, yeah, I'll think about it. I'll get back with you, Joe," as many of us do when we get those calls to get on committees. But I was a geek. I always watched the city commission meetings. And to my surprise, he put my name in the nomination, and I became a member of the Motor Vehicle Parking Authority. But I'll tell you, it was an education, because what I learned is how infrastructure works in a city that I grew up, how important it is to find parking, how important parking garages play, what streets mean, what are state routes, what are city routes. You start to learn that very quickly, where the money's coming from. And it's pretty daunting. It is pretty daunting, especially a city of over 40,000 people, and we have employees. So we're over 400 employees, give or take, depending on our seasonal. So Covington is a big city. So I got down and I learned as much as I could in the parking authority. I made some great acquaintances there, had a lot of friendships that were made in that, and we were making some strides in the parking authority. The next thing I know, Mayor Meyer asked me to run for city commission, and me thinking about the Medication Assisted Treatment Center, I thought, there's no way people would ever elect me to an office to represent them. So I was scared. But what I learned very quickly after accepting his challenge and going door to door, that the clinic was actually a positive, because we had made so many we had helped so many people turn their lives around, and I was blessed to being the highest vote getter in the city for the last 2 terms, and I got to serve as the mayor pro tem. So that's what I got to do. As city commissioner, I want to say this: my hat goes off to all the elected officials before me and before Mayor Meyer. When I was growing up, Denny Bowman was my mayor. Everybody remembers Denny. Denny's still around. Just a great man. All the mayors and the public officials that served, they might not see all of this vibrancy, but they are the ones that helped start it. I was just looking into an old file on Fidelity Investments, and I saw where the Board of Commission had given tax breaks to bring that project, and how important Fidelity Investments is to our city today. So they had the wisdom to cut those deals, to give tax breaks to businesses that were going to invest in our community. So my hat goes off to them. So City Commission has been really, really rewarding to get to know our citizens in every neighborhood, get to know their needs, and maybe being able to help. I can tell you, as the mayor, the biggest rewards I get is helping with the small problems, because they seem to be huge problems. They seem to be such huge problems to people that you're dealing with. But I can maybe solve their issues with a phone call or showing up at their house and walking them through something, and just to see that stress being relieved, that is truly, truly a grateful thing that I am able to do as an elected official. So something strange happened in the city of Covington. City of Covington voters took up a referendum. As you may know, the city of Covington is under a city manager form of government. Currently, a city manager form of government. What's that mean? That means day-to-day operations are run by the city manager. The city manager gets his direction from us, the Board of Commission, which the mayor is a member of. But it's truly, truly not day-to-day operations, because under the current law, the mayor or commissioners can kind of take the wheel away from the city manager at any time. What I've seen over the last 4 years is our voters get the short end of the stick on that. Their needs are not addressed appropriately. Sometimes they get lost in translation. There's no accountability, or very little accountability, under that system. And this is what I mean. Under the system, what could happen is basically you asked your elected representative, your commissioner, or your mayor to do something. He asked, that city manager to carry that request out. But of course, he has to get 2 other votes to officially ask the city manager. Now, the city manager may or may not carry out the wishes, and then we've lost control because we've moved on to other things. Or what could take place is maybe the mayor or commissioner's not really for it, and they can blame the city manager, or they can blame the other commissioners that they couldn't do something. So there was no accountability under this system. We're under a mayor-council form, which there was a referendum done in Covington. It puts the CEO, the day-to-day control over the city, into the hands of the mayor. This shouldn't be a scary system for you. It was passed by the voters of Covington last election by 61%. This should not be scary to you because you're already living under it. You're living under it because we have a president of the United States, which would be equivalent to your mayor, except we do not have an army or a navy, okay? All right? We do not have that. So you have that. You have the president with the Congress. You have a governor, which would be your mayor, and you have the General Assembly, which would be your city council, except we do not have the National Guard. And you have the fiscal court, which you have a judge executive who runs the day-to-day operation. And right now we're in Kenton County, where Kirsten Ockelman's our judge executive. And you have the fiscal court who acts as the legislative body and to the system. So Covington is switching to the mayor-council form. It's the most prominent form in the state of Kentucky and here in Kenton County. So the buck stops with the mayor. The mayor's going to have tough conversations with its citizens, but he or she will need to advocate for the community at all times. Else, if they don't like them, they fire them by not voting for them. So our city government will be in transition. We're in transition right now. Our city commission voted to put in a citizens committee. That citizens committee is led by Sebastian Torres, Director of External Affairs. Sebastian's an attorney, and he works closely with me. And we make sure that transition committee is evaluating all aspects of the Covington city government. In other words, they're looking at how the money is being spent, how policy is being implemented, and then they make those recommendations toward the sitting Board of Commissioners, and they can choose whether or not to change. We also go out and we get survey information from peer cities. As I mentioned before, Covington's the 5th largest city. So we're talking to other mayor-council forms in the state of Kentucky to see how are you doing this? What has worked, what hasn't. So we're trying to bring the best government possible. So one of the things you may still be confused about, you may say Mayor or Ron or Ronnie, depending how you know me. Why are you doing this again? So let me give you the story of the fire truck. So City of Covington needs a fire truck. We have multiple fire trucks. You may not know this, but it takes approximately 4 years for a new fire truck to arrive after being ordered. The average cost of a fire truck is around $1 million. That's for a pumper truck. A ladder truck costs about $2 million. So our fire department, through their research, found a pre-owned fire truck, and I believe it was Oldham County. So under the system of the city manager form of government, it takes 6 weeks to purchase that truck, okay? Give or take 6 weeks. So our staff finds the truck. They have to ask the guy, can you please hold the truck? And luckily, he agreed to hold the truck for us. And 6 weeks later, the city government was able to purchase it. Because we have legislative and executive authority. So we not only pass the budget, but then we tell the city manager how to spend it. So that requires several meetings. So that delays the process. Same with hiring. We're under a truly, truly competitive hiring process. So we need to attract the brightest to our city, and that same process takes that way to hire people. Now, some people will say, well, if the employee is really good, you can just call a special session, which the mayor can call a special session, or the majority of city commission call a special session. As I mentioned before, we have 400 employees. We have an average turnover of 50 employees a year. That's through retirement and just other things, and through special projects and seasonal. So as you can imagine, that would be pretty cumbersome. Already the city commission, it meets weekly. So under this new system, when you go by the fire truck, this General Assembly, the Congress, otherwise known as the council, will have passed the budget. They will give the mayor the authority to go purchase the fire truck. Fire chief comes to the mayor and says, I want this fire truck. Mayor asks him questions, make sure that it's the right thing for the city, and the purchase is done. Talking about a couple-day process. That is the efficiency of government that we're talking about that Covington needs to do. Covington needs to be as nimble as possible, and the voters were smart enough to understand this, and they have given us ability to take our city to the next step. They really have. So this is a very exciting time for Covington. So with that, I can go into our economic development. I'm not sure of your timing, or how am I looking on time?
About 5 minutes.
Got 5 minutes?
Yeah.
I was trying to fill time. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And then, 5 minutes?
And then we'll break and have some
We're gonna
questions.
take a short break for lunch, and then we'll ask you some questions.
Okay, all right, so I'll do quick. So let's talk, everybody wants to talk about all the new things that are happening in Covington. So I'm gonna roll through this, and you can ask them a question. Covington Central Riverfront, all are known as the former IRS site. So what's going on there, okay? It's a $100 million development the city will wind up spending, $100 million. It's 23 acres. The money's going for demolition, turning it back into city blocks, putting utilities there. So it's an investment that the citizens wanted and Covington's pursuing. What is going there so far? We have 4 development deals that are signed. We're bringing homes there. We're bringing condos there. There's an apartment building for market rate apartments going to that location. It's approximately 250 market rate apartments. Also, there's going to be a $100 million hotel that's going to be at that location. That hotel is going to have a restaurant rooftop. There's also a park with a land bridge that you can see the city of Cincinnati in there. Big things happening at this location. Be glad to answer any more questions at that location. Still downtown, as we're looking at economic development, we're waiting for any day to see where Covington's Chase Law School and UK Medical School is going to be in Covington. As you might know, our friend Senator McDaniel, in his wisdom, he championed a cause to bring Chase Law School home to Covington, and also UK Medical School. So the appropriation says it has to be in Covington, so there's several locations that they're looking at. We're very excited to once again bring vibrancy to our downtown that's already there. So also there's going to be 2 RFPs, requests for proposals, going out there. Moving rather quickly again, one of my signature projects is our housing initiative. As you may or may not know, there is a big crush on people needing affordable housing. City of Covington has 200 vacant lots and abandoned buildings. The City Commission, with my recommendation, created a housing task force. The housing task force is made up of developers, for-profit, nonprofit, financiers, people like that. We want to take our vacant lots and we want to take our infill housing and we want to put people in them. Pure and simple. We need workers and we need them to live in our city, because as you see the vibrancy, everything's going on. If we don't have the workers to service all these great things, it's not going to work. So we put this program on steroids, and we've got a lot of help from a lot of professional people in this space, and it's going to be very exciting. Still moving right along here. Mayor's Academy. We announced the Mayor's Academy. We had our first class. The Mayor's Academy has had 30 participants in it. We had our first class. The Mayor's Academy is to learn about government. What makes government tick on the local level? We're very excited about that. We had over 100 applicants. We'll have more classes in the city of Covington about learning how your city works. And still moving along here. Let's take it up Madison Avenue. You're coming up Madison Avenue. What's happening there? Remember the old Sims furniture? Anybody ever buy furniture at Sims? Okay, Sims is now going to be Spark House. Spark House is going to be an entrepreneur hub like you wouldn't believe. We're excited. Our county partners is leading this process. The state of Kentucky, once again, Chris McDaniel, has invested in this. So we're looking for, there's going to be a lot of talented people in that building, and we're hoping to grow jobs. That's Spark House. And I will leave it on this one, and then I'll come back to answer your questions. But you probably heard Fisher, Fisher Development, Fisher Homes is moving to City of Covington. Anybody know where First District is? Covington Junior High? I know Sergeant Lynn probably remembers that. Across from the library. Okay, they're going to put a couple stories on that building across from. They're bringing 350 jobs to downtown. You're talking about restaurants. You're talking about nightlife. You're talking about people. It is great being the mayor, but my hat goes off to all the elected officials before me because they're making my job easier. So with that, okay, thanks. All right, I've got several questions here, so glad to be back with you. First question I'm looking at is why do I say I will not be a stranger? Define what that means. So what that means to me is being a commissioner especially is I got my marching orders from the people of the city. And I think the further you get away from the people of the city, you lose sight of what's important to them. So you do not need to be a stranger, even though you're elected to office. You need to engage the community as much as possible, and you need to explain what's going on to them. You need to get feedback, and you need to have really open communications as much as possible. Now, I will say this. It is trying. It's tough. We have a vibrant, big city. Social media I get messages on social media. I get emails. I get text messages. I haven't changed my phone number since being elected. It does become very, very cumbersome, and I try to pride myself into getting back to people within a day. But that's what I mean, because I feel lost if I'm not talking to our community. So that's that. Parking issues, cash safety, transportation, streets, sidewalks. Okay, so let me just talk real quickly about parking. Because if you come to Covington, you'll notice that there's more meters and meters and meters, right? So what's that about? Okay, this is what that's about. The Covington has a motor vehicle parking authority. We have parking garages in our city. So the parking garages over the years were always taken care of out of our general fund. So if we had enough money in our general fund, we would take care of the parking garages. What does that mean? We have expensive elevators, we have maintenance, they are buildings, and we were not adequately funding that at the city for various reasons. So the Motor Vehicle Parking Authority is an entity within city government, and they are tasked with making sure that they have enough money to run our parking garages and to hear about the issues within our community so the community can address parking issues. I say that with this. Also, they are tasked with economic development. Economic development means parking garages. How much do you think a parking space and a parking garage costs to build? Does anyone have an idea? Want to just throw a figure? 800,000. No. $60,000 per space is the average for a parking space in a garage when you're building a new garage. So that entity's got to be able to bond for parking garage. $60,000 per space. Okay. Okay, going on to the next question. Is that the format, sir? Okay. What about getting a grocery store downtown? Wow. We're trying. We're trying. Matter of fact, there's a request for proposal that's coming out. You heard me talk in the earlier remarks about there's a lot O in CCR, Covington Central Riverfront IRS, and we're asking developers to consider putting a grocery store at that location. This is what I've learned about grocery stores and developers. The numbers have to make sense, okay? So we still need to make sure that the numbers make sense for them to build it. The city is not in a position to build a grocery store. I agree, we need something downtown. What can you do to help the Covington schools? As you already know, I am a volunteer with Covington Schools, so in that capacity, I help with the schools. I'm also proud to say that I help with the Alumni Association on a personal level. We do tours at City Hall. We bring our kids into City Hall. I'm an advocate for our system. I grew up watching the Covington police. I knew I could be a policeman. It's important for me to have our kids know that they could be mayor of our city. So that's one thing I do. We support the schools as much as possible. They are their own separate government. We did, however, just partner with them in the Covington Recreation Commission, which is a commission designed that is appointed by me, the mayor, and the school board chairman, and we put people on this recreation commission so we can come together and realize recreation opportunities by using their facilities and using their parks. So that's one of the partnerships that we're doing. We also have Read Ready Covington that helps preschoolers with reading. All right, moving along. I'm a lifelong resident in Northern Kentucky and lived in Covington for 16 years. I remember how vibrant the Covington riverfront was in the 80s and 90s. What are you doing specifically to bring back the type of entertainment and dining options? I will say this, you may not know it, Covington was named one of the top 50 cities in the United States last year by Money Magazines. Yes, one of the top 50 cities, all right? We were just in Food and Wine magazine. As far as small cities, we were named number 4 for our culinary. We are meeting that challenge, and we do it through our small business program. We try to make money available, try to return taxpayers' money to them so we can improve small businesses. So we're tackling that issue. If you go down the riverfront, you'll see a lot of things happening. We work with, I'm getting the trails. Yeah, the trail people on our trail. No. So anyway, moving on. All right, sorry.
The Bourbon Trail.
No, not the Bourbon Trail. Somebody just yelled the Bourbon Trail. It's not even 1 o'clock. Okay. How do we avoid overtaxing our residents with market rate housing? Okay. The reality of the situation is this. When it comes to city government, the way city government it funds itself, it's the main way we fund ourselves is through occupational tax, through jobs. That's where we get the majority of our money from. When you're thinking about residential homes and the taxes on your homes, let me just give you a figure. We collect $9 million in the city of Covington for taxing on homes. Our fire department budget is $20 million. So just to give you a kind of feel of those numbers, that is always a concern about overtaxing our residents. The way to prevent this is by growing jobs. We have to create an atmosphere where we grow jobs and people want to be here. That way we can still provide the services and be a less burden on our people. How do rising real estate prices and rising inflation affect Covington government? Good question. So we are seeing gentrification in the city. That is why we're doing our housing plan as far as taking these vacant lots and vacant buildings and trying to put working class people in those. People, you know, my thing, there's so many definitions: income line, working house, affordable, all of this is my definition. If you're working and you're trying to make it and you're contributing to society, Covington wants to be your partner within our tax structure. So that's what we're trying to do with our vacant house program. And what I've learned also in my life is I don't drive around in circles. I stop and ask directions. So we're asking the experts in that field, how can we make housing more affordable in our city? My eyes aren't going to let me read that one. Sorry. Why does Covington need to change the direction of Scott and Greenup Street? It's time. Are we out of time? No. I will tell you this story one time. So just the other day, we are starting to pave Madison Avenue, and one of our residents said, "Ron, did you pave Madison Avenue?" I said, "Well, do you think that's good or bad?" And he said, "I think it's good." I said, "Oh yeah, that was me." So why does Covington need to change the direction of Scott and Greenup Street? Before I got elected, the residents asked actually for Scott and Greenup Street to become a two-way street. Unfortunately, it turns it into, they did a study along with it. It turns it more into a neighborhood, and it slows traffic, and it does traffic calming. So the residents asked for that. Now, as you all are familiar with government moves slow, and that was our city and our state government. They have to work together to do some street swaps. So that is what's happening with Scott and Greenup. It was driven by the neighborhoods. by the time it's here, a lot of the neighbors are already gone and they don't remember even asking for it. So your current elected officials are trying to explain what's going on here. So, but there's not going to be a change. We're not able to stop it. The money's been already appropriated. The sidewalks are being bumped out. Once again, those tough conversations with our community. Have patience with us. Call me. I'll go out there with you. But that's the reason we're doing it. Are you going to run again? My wife really doesn't watch TV, so if the citizens seem like they want me, I'd be proud to run this city. Thank you. Thank you very much. 2 minutes to wrap up. Thank you for having me. If you haven't been to our city, we call it the downtown of Northern Kentucky. Please come to downtown Northern Kentucky, which is Covington. There's a lot of good things. We got a lot of good people down there. There's a lot of momentum. It's a safe place. It's just go to 7th and Madison. I say this, I would go to 7th and Madison years ago and everybody would know me. Not as the mayor, but as Ronnie Washington. Nobody knows me. That's the vibrancy of our community. People are coming to Covington, and it's because of leaders before me that have paved the way. Come and spend your hard-earned money. That's all. Thank you.